Welcome into the Arizona Cardinals Dynasty review, looking at what has changed with the Cardinals now that the 2023 season is basically over. We got one more week to go. It is Friday, January 5th, so week 18 hasn't started yet. And that's kind of big for the Cardinals because actually their draft, it could change. They could potentially be the number two. They're currently the fourth overall pick. They could be as high as 2. They could be as low, I believe, as 7. So a lot can change still with them. But Brian, when you think of the Arizona Cardinals, what do you think of? Think of it was a better season than most people thought, or still a pretty bad season?
It was obviously still a bad season in general as a whole, but if you look at it a little more like broken up, like I think we were all impressed that Kyler came back when he did because I don't remember what their record was going into week 10 when he came back, but I know it wasn't good. Like they maybe had won 1 or 2 games at that point. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of like, I think Kyler, he kind of had to come back to show like, yeah, no, you guys are keeping me kind of a thing. Like I can still do it even coming off that serious, was it a knee injury?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ACL, I think.
Yeah, so I thought it was like multiple ligaments, maybe.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was really good. It was really like it shows a lot of promise. Like, and obviously they just beat Philadelphia in Week 17, so it's like even when Philly had a lot to play for, like the Cardinals showed that they can still be competitive even with their team as it stands. So yeah, I thought overall, I don't know what you call that, but kind of like a good showing for sure, but even on a bad season.
Yeah, and I think a little clarity as well, like in terms of what they're going to do. This team should make a lot of moves in the offseason. They got the 10th most cap space at $52 million. They got 13 draft picks, including 2 first-round picks. I put 102 that when I made this, they were at the 102 and then they beat the Eagles. So they are at the 104. They have the Texans pick. We'll see if the Texans make the playoffs. Currently, I think that is the 17th pick. So that's kind of where we'll be at if they don't make the playoffs. So they got a bunch of picks. Head coach Jonathan Gannon is definitely going to be there. Free agents, the only big name is Marquise Brown. I mean, Greg Dortch, I guess, could be. I think he's a good player. They just don't really use him. I don't know why, but Marquise Brown is the big free agent. But we'll get into that in just a second. With the depth chart, it's Kyler and Clayton Tune. The big question all year and up until maybe last week was, they were potentially going to have a top 3 pick. Do they move on from Kyler? And I don't think they do now. I think them beating the Eagles is big. Not only, now that they're out of the top 3 and we kind of expected to go the first 3 picks potentially to be quarterbacks. But Kyler's looked good. Surprisingly enough, he's fantasy wise. I know that's not everything. He's looked good lately, but fantasy since he came back is the QB 10, and that's with a bye week. So really, he's more like the QB 7, I believe, in total points. So and that's coming off an ACL, not playing for almost a year. So I think your window to buy Kyler low is long gone, in my opinion, in Superflex.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So if you bought him low, congratulations. If you still have him, you didn't sell him low, good. So yeah, I think Kyler's he's gonna be a top 10 quarterback next year, and that's super valuable. Again, we're talking Superflex as well. So anything on Kyler really? I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot to necessarily talk about, assuming he's back with the Cardinals, which I think he will be.
Yeah, no, it was good to see him run still, even like we said, coming back from that knee injury. And basically every game he threw for over 200 yards, which is, it's not lights out, but it's like, it's good to see them kind of like making the most of with what they had. So yeah, good stuff. Go Kyler.
Yeah, and another thing is, again, they have the 4th pick right now. If it does go 3 straight quarterbacks, then they get Marvin Harrison Jr. So yeah, that's only going to help Kyler. They could get Malik Neighbors even, if Marvin Harrison Jr. does get drafted, and you get, a guy that would be wide receiver 1 in a lot of drafts just because Marvin Harrison's there. He's not, but so yeah, it's definitely looking good and some consistency there. And again, cap space looking good for Kyler. The running backs, really only James Conner, like DeMercado and Michael Carter are holds. Like any running back that potentially could be the RB2, you just kind of hold on to until something changes. James Conner is interesting because they have a potential out on his contract, and I think they can save a decent amount of money. But also James Conner, especially we saw the last 3 weeks, he kind of won people championships. He's just good when he's healthy. He's just really good. He's always like a top back. But yeah, they can save. They can save a lot of money. I think they can save. Looks like they would have 3 million in dead cap, so they could save like about 5 million, I believe, which is pretty decent for a running back. I don't know. Where are you at with James Conner on a contending team? Are you're just holding him?
Yeah, I think you just hold him because I don't know what you're getting for him necessarily. Like, he is one of those guys who continues to impress when he gets the opportunity. I could totally see the Cardinals given they don't even really need to save the cap. But I was going to say maybe they restructure his contract to try and keep him there, try and give him a little bit less because, he is getting up there in age, but they obviously trust him and like him. So I can easily see him still being there this coming year. But yeah, like I think he's a solid hold.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he's just one of those running backs, like you said. I feel like we underestimate him every year. Like there's these players that were just like Deontay was one of those. I know he didn't have a great year this year, but it's just like no one's excited to have him on their team. And then you look at it, it's like, oh, James Conner over the playoffs was RB4, and obviously he's going to miss time. That's just what he does. But no, he's a good player. I could see him going to like what if he went to Baltimore or Dallas to replace Tony Pollard? Like how excited would we be then? If he gets on a team like that. So I don't know. What would you take for him? Even if you're contending, if someone said, I'll give you the 202 for him, 203 for him, are you just taking the value for Connor at that point in January?
I probably would. I don't see why not, kind of a thing. Like I think that's probably right around fair, honestly.
Yep. I agree. I'd probably all the way to like a mid-second. I'd probably just to, again, like you don't want to be holding the bag on guys like this. So, but anything like late second and beyond, I think I'd just keep James Conner. And then the receivers, it's really, to me, it's Marquise Brown, who's a free agent, and Michael Wilson are the big talks. I don't think Rondale Moore is really going to turn into anything like in a standard 12 team start 9 or 10 players. Like I don't really think Rondale Moore is ever going to be a start worthy player at this point in his career. Greg Dortch is interesting, but he's a free agent. Like, I don't know. I wish they played him more, but maybe hold on to Greg Dortch, but I don't think he's going to be necessarily a significant contributor as well.
Maybe not significant, but I think he has some value if Rondale's not there, But Rondale's younger than him. They're probably like the same class, huh? Oh no, Rondale's 2 years younger. Or sorry, 2 years less experience. Oh yeah, and 2 years younger. So yeah, I guess Rondale will be there. So yeah, you're probably not getting anything for these guys. I wouldn't say they're cuttable necessarily, but if you can get like an early third round pick for either one of those guys, I'd probably just take that and just say like who cares, kind of a thing.
Yeah, honestly, if a guy like Rondale feels kind of like a little bit of a roster clogger in the sense of like, I don't think he's ever going to turn into anything. Again, we're 3 years in now, and the guy hasn't had more than 450 yards receiving, like a second round pick. And I think it's just, I'd rather spend my roster spot. We've seen how valuable like backup, like Kyron Williams is, like what if you just dropped Rondale last year and picked up Kyron, like, he's a running back. We'll see what happens in the offseason, and how that would have paid off. Obviously, we're talking about the most extreme case. I think you're more likely to hit on a running back to give you value next year, or even a backup quarterback, than just holding on to Rondale Moore. But
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I think if you're holding him, it's kind of in hopes that he goes back to what he did in 22, where he only played half the season, but he was on pace for just over 100 targets and 800 yards. No touchdowns really though, so that kind of hurts definitely. But I know he has like some interesting he was kind of a gadget player there for a little bit too. So I don't know. But yeah, probably you're right. Like roster clogger.
Yeah, 27 carries. That's nice for sure.
Yeah.
To have those, but we need 60, 70 catches or 80 plus targets in order for that to really make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And also, they have a good run game with Connor right now and Kyler, so it's he's not, you can't necessarily depend on that.
Yeah. Marquise Brown, where would he go? Like, where would he have to go for him to kind of increase his value? Because he's an interesting one. Like, he started off the last 2 years, he started off really well. Before Kyler got hurt in 2022, he was like a top 10 receiver, I think. This last year, I think he was like a top 20, top 15 guy for the first 6-7 weeks. And then he's fallen off. He's all the way down at wide receiver 39, according to Keep Trade Cut. So, like, if he lands on the Chiefs, I think his value definitely goes up there, right? I mean, just because it's the Chiefs, whether or not it's warranted.
Or Buffalo, maybe. Like if Gabe Davis doesn't return, like that's going to be an interesting one to talk about when we get to them. But yeah, we definitely want to see him paired with an elite quarterback. I mean, what if he went to the Cowboys? If I don't know what Cook's situation is. I know they just signed him this year, so he probably is going to be there this next year, especially if he played relatively well. But you definitely want to see him with an elite quarterback. I mean, that's all we've really seen him with. It was Lamar first and now Kyler, but I think there's still a lot of unlocked potential there. Like if we could get back to what he did in 2021, I mean, he definitely seems to earn targets. I mean, that's one thing you can't take away from him, over 100 targets basically every year of his career except his rookie year. And 2 of those were with Baltimore, who doesn't throw a lot. And then the other 2 are, missing at least 3 games, and he's still breaking 100. So I think there's still potential there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you're wanting to sell him, I don't think now is the best time to do it. I think the best time is to wait to see where he goes, or wait till 3-4 weeks into the season if he does well. I just don't think you're going to get much. Like, I don't want to trade him for anything outside of maybe the top 15 picks in this draft. Like,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. He might be similar to Connor in that way, where like if you're not getting an early second, then I wouldn't do it. I'm not trading him for a late second. Maybe 2 late seconds.
Yeah, I'd do it for 2 seconds. And again, a lot of it's based on, like, I think his value can probably go up in the offseason. So, and then Michael Wilson, I think, is kind of a sneaky buy, like, depending on how people feel about him. I was just looking at it. I think he was equivalent, according to Keep Trade Cut, equivalent to a late 2025 second. So essentially like a 2024 third. Would you trade a mid third for him this year?
Oh yeah, I would. And that's probably where he was basically like where he was drafted. Like in our league, I think I got him with the first pick of the 4th round, but it's only a 10-team league, so that's pick 31. So he probably went right around there. I guess I can't really use our league as like where he went necessarily, but I think he's I would definitely give a mid third for him. Because I feel like whoever's going to be there this draft class, like it's going to be kind of equivalent to like what Michael Wilson could be, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw him flash, miss some time there with the injury, and I just don't think he really had time with Kyler to build any type of rapport there. You look at he had a couple no catch games, only a few targets, but he had a good stretch there where he was getting some games where he's getting 5, 6, 7 targets, and I think he's an interesting 3rd round pick. He's suited as like a wide receiver 2 in my opinion, and if you pair him with like a Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, I think that's a pretty good core there. So sneaky buy potentially if you can get him for cheap. No one else in the receiving core here. And then it's Trey McBride. Like I didn't even check where he's at this point. Like where's he at? Positional rankings, probably tight end 3.
It's probably gonna be like tight end 4 or something. No, he's 3. Yeah, he's in. I don't agree with that necessarily. Like I wouldn't put him in front of Mark Andrews just yet. But I mean, you could flip flop those 2 guys. I mean, that's kind of the youth and like the team that he's on too. It's like we know Arizona likes to utilize their tight ends in general. Like obviously, like we've seen it year over year in general. Mm-hmm. Like they really do, and not even with the same coaching staff. It's kind of like, and not even with the same quarterbacks. Like we see these guys involved. With Zach Ertz for the last couple of years, but didn't Zach Ertz like start off okay this year? Even was that this year?
So yeah, I think both the last 2 years.
So yeah, I think he's a solid tight end, but I mean, I don't know. Like, what would you trade him for? I guess is kind of, or what would you trade to get him? Like, are you giving up? Like, you're not giving up a top 6 pick to get him.
No,
but
not this year.
I assume you might, you'd give up a late first for him, like say 8 through 12. Would you go that far?
Yeah, I think I would. I'd have to double check. Like, definitely like the 10 to 12 range. I think I would, especially in like a tight end premium league.
Oh yeah, I think 107, 106 is like definitely in the mix if it's tight end premium.
Yeah, if I can, I would do it late first. I would. I think he is going to be one of the few difference makers at tight end. Just like, I think he's just going to be really, really good. I honestly, and maybe this is like a hot take, I think I'd take him over Sam Laporta. And I know Laporta finishes tight end 1 this year. I'm a little not concerned necessarily, but he did have I think about 30% of his fantasy points came on touchdowns, which I like to see a little bit more. A little bit. Obviously, touchdowns are nice; they're just hard to bank on, right? Whereas you look at McBride only had 2 touchdowns, so less than 10% of his production came on. It was basically just like dominating, getting catches, and I just think McBride is a little bit more dominant in that sense of just like he could be. To me, he's more likely. If anyone's more likely to be Kelsey, it's McBride versus Laporta, I guess, of just being like that complete dominant, number 1 option for a team type of tight end. So,
and just to remind everyone, he was the first tight end taken 2 years ago, right? Wasn't he the first guy drafted like in the second? I mean, he went in the 2nd round, but I think he was the first tight end off the board.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. It was him and then Dulcich, I believe.
Yeah.
So, no, it's fine. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with you that him versus Andrews, like if someone really values him that much more, and it's not that much more, it's 1 spot, but like if someone does value him, like if I can trade McBride to get Andrews and a pick, like a 2nd round pick, I would do that in a heartbeat, like. Because I don't think they're that far off necessarily over the next 3 years or something.
Would you trade them straight up though?
I'd probably keep McBride.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd keep McBride just because
Yeah,
I've already
I think
seen
I'm
it.
on the
You
other
know,
side. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's just because I've seen he's young and I've seen now him be a difference maker. You know, he had almost 800 yards receiving, and what was it, week 6 when he started to take over or something? Week 6, I believe, is when Zach Ertz got hurt. So he wasn't really playing a whole lot the first 5 weeks. So I think I did the math, and at one point when I looked a couple weeks ago, he was on pace for like an 11 or 1,200 yard season or something crazy. If you took it from like week 6 on. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to argue too much. You take
Yeah.
Andrews straight up.
Yeah, I think I would still lean on the Andrew side. But yeah, I agree. I don't think there's much of an argument there. It's like whoever you prefer. Obviously, there's a 4-year difference in age, but Andrew's still only 28, and we've seen, tight ends stay productive well into their 30s.
Yep. Yeah, but man, did he rise? Let's see where he his rise real quick. So
Yeah,
October 2023, tight end 21.
Yeah,
and he's tight end 3 now. It's crazy.
I can't remember what the trade was. What I acquired him in the Dynasty Orphan League as like kind of a throw-in piece with something else, and I know that's not tight end premium, but I know that manager's just like kicking themselves in the ass for that one.
Yeah, for sure. I just like seeing the dominant, like crazy amount of targets and catches. So, but also Arizona didn't really have much, so maybe Laporta could do that if they didn't have Amon-Ra, but
they're going to. So.
Yeah, they are.
And real quick, just I know we're kind of wrapping it up now, but I think Michael Carter is something worth mentioning also. Like, as like he could be kind of a sneaky buy low. Also, like you might be able to get him for a 3rd round pick. Like I picked him up off of waiver wires. In my orphan league, and I think you got him off waivers in our dynasty league, didn't you?
Yeah.
So I think that could be sneaky because he basically, he got traded, right? Or he just get cut by the Jets, and then
I think
then they just picked him up. Yeah, and then they just picked him up off the waivers. Like, obviously, I wouldn't spend a whole lot, nowhere near even a late second on him, but I don't think you need to give that up to get him. Like if there's someone who actually drafted him or kind of like picked him up, like let's say, 2 years ago, and they've just been holding him, you could probably get him for relatively cheap. And I think he's a decent dart throw, because what if Connor's not there and he becomes the guy?
Yeah. And this is kind of what when it comes to the receivers that are roster cloggers. I'd take Michael Carter over Rondale Moore. Just like, I think there's more potential for Michael Carter to be a difference maker than like Rondale Moore to ever get there. So, so there's other receivers out there too that are kind of in that boat. But yeah, that's a good call. Anything else on the Cardinals?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, we will be back with the Commanders. As always, like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys next time.